I can feel so much intense anger, and I can feel it directed towards men. And it was coming up in a really unconscious way. Of course, we've got the stage set for the perfect storm. My car wouldn't start. There was the drama and anxiety about that, trying to get to work. And then, of course, once I got back, I locked myself out of the house because I had brought my keys back into the house that I had locked up. When I came back from the car that didn't start, and of course, once I got another set of keys, then the keys for the house were hanging where I usually put them. So I didn't sleep in my bed, and I was anxious about being able to get in there in the morning and all of this. So that was stressful, didn't sleep much, ended up working super early and then working super late, and having something I was working on that was urgent, and I didn't have the skills to do it. So it was this perfect storm of exhaustion and lack of sleep and stress building up the body, and I can feel all the pain in my body as my nervous system is freaking out. But the way it came up was unconscious because I was already starting to imagine a scenario tomorrow. For example, preemptively getting angry because I was imagining my boss not listening to my frustrations and hearing me, which can be interpreted to mean that they are belittling my experience. But even deeper, it's reflective of the men who have shamed me or tried to devalue me to make themselves feel better. And I'm experiencing the emotional memory of how awful that was, because my mind is now online with the fact of that being abusive, even though it wasn't physically abusive. And it was easy for me to invalidate the negative impacts and consequence of that. People trying to devalue your worth is awful, especially when it comes from someone that you rely on in some way. I was making up these stories and getting angry about how my boss wouldn't listen to me, how this would become a huge problem. And I was ramping up this anger, but it was really an excuse to both feel the anger and not feel the anger. Because if I'm really honest with myself, this is something that's coming up within me to be healed. And using that story doesn't help heal it. It's so much quicker, it's so much easier just to feel the emotion, acknowledge it, and feel through it and let it dissipate. Which, once I acknowledge to myself that this is really about me and not about my boss, not about the men in my workplace, but it's about me healing. And this just happens to be the exact scenario that precipitates this emotion to come up. This is the incredible thing about healing, is that it will use whatever situation you have in your life to bring up whatever within you that needs to be purged and healed and let go of. And something that you can feel the emotion of, make sense of it in your mind, and then process and heal it. I can process it and heal it because I know that I am valuable and I am worthy. And I have a lot to offer. And maybe I didn't fully believe it at the time. And that created that sense of hurt. Because how awful is it to believe that you are worthless and don't offer that much? That's really debilitating to your sense of self and your ability to show up as your full authentic self and give your gifts to the world. And I can see how I didn't feel safe enough to feel my feelings about this. Your true authentic feelings can be that anger, that hurt, and that was coming up within me, that I wasn't allowed to feel my feelings. And so there was this construct that makes up stories to allow those feelings to be felt. But then those stories can make the anger into a much bigger deal, can cause me to get into a fight with my boss, with my coworkers. I was even imagining a scenario where I got fired. And so I was imagining all these scenarios in my mind. And we wonder, why are things happening like this for me in my life? Like, I'm not thinking and feeling these negative emotions and creating this, except that I just was. Because all I had to do was feel through the anger and acknowledge that that's all it was. Intense anger that was triggered within me, and that I didn't need to worry about situations for tomorrow because I had time right now to process that anger. Thank goodness. And yet, my mind could have convinced me that I need to hold on to that anger right up till tomorrow, and then bringing it up with the people I work with. I had thoughts about, I don't like my job, even though I did like my job. I think I even said it in a video not too long ago. And I don't like my coworkers and I don't want to be here. Well, then the mind has to keep making up stories and stories and stories. I don't want to feel the pain I'm feeling right now. Let's interpret that story into, I don't want to feel this pain. Let's do whatever we can do to avoid feeling this pain. And maybe I can project this pain onto someone else, and that'll give me a sense of security, because if I just get rid of this person, I can get rid of this pain. But then that doesn't work. And so what do? You can make this healing fast, quick, and easy. But that takes practice. There's all these aspects and elements and characters that we have that show up within us. There's these narratives that are imposed on us socially. There are these narratives from our specific situation, from our environment. Those narratives can be important, and there's also a time to release and let them go.